Karma's silence is often misunderstood as indifference, yet silence is not the absence of justice. Silence is simply the space in which consequences ripen on their own timeline. When people speak of karma, they imagine a cosmic force chasing wrongdoers, correcting injustices, and avenging betrayal. But karma does not shout, it does not chase, and it does not need to announce itself. It works quietly in the shadows of choices, in the echoes of intentions, and in the inner landscape of a person's character. The one who harms others harms themselves first. The one who lies fractures their own integrity before the lie ever reaches another's ears. And the one who abandons, manipulates, or devalues another plants the seeds of their own emptiness. Karma does not need to reveal its timing to you. It does not need to give you signs. Its silence is not neglect. Its silence is wisdom. It moves when it must, not when you want it to. When someone has wronged you, the mind automatically obsesses over fairness. You want to see balance restored. You want to see the scales corrected. You want a moment where the universe pauses, points back at them, and says, "No, you understand what you caused." But insisting on witnessing that moment is where most suffering begins. You are not responsible for supervising the consequences of another's behavior. The world does not require your approval before it restores equilibrium. What matters is that life has its own mechanisms, its own seasons, its own way of bringing people face to face with themselves. The person who mistreated you is already living with the weight of their own nature, even if they don't realize it yet. The person who lied to you is already chained to the fear of being discovered. The person who betrayed you is already living with a fractured sense of loyalty that will haunt every future bond they try to form. Karma's silence is not inactivity, it is the natural unfolding of truth. And this is precisely why moving on requires inner discipline. Not because the past is impossible to forget, but because the past must be understood, integrated, and then released. What keeps most people stuck is not what happened. It is the refusal to let go of their role as a spectator in someone else's karmic story. You want closure from them. You want an apology. You want them to see your worth. You want them to realize what they lost. But these wants are chains disguised as justice. They keep your mind trapped in a story that no longer deserves your presence. You are not obligated to remain in the emotional space where you were harmed. You are not required to reenact the same scenes in your thoughts. The only thing you owe yourself is the freedom to move forward untangled by expectations. The truth is, moving on is not an act of forgetting. It is an act of reclaiming your ownership over your own energy. You reclaim your peace when you stop giving your mind away to what no longer serves you. You reclaim your strength when you stop rehearsing the injuries someone else caused. You reclaim your time when you stop waiting for justice to appear in a form you recognize. Life does not give you healing through revenge. It gives you healing through detachment. Detachment is not coldness. Detachment is not apathy. Detachment is the quiet understanding that what does not belong in your path cannot stay in your path, no matter how deeply you once wished it could. There will always be people who take your kindness for weakness, who mistake your patience for naivety, who assume your silence means lack of awareness. They believe they succeeded in taking advantage because you did not react. They assume they got away with it because you did not retaliate. But what they fail to understand is that your silence was not submission, it was strength. You chose not to descend to their level. You chose integrity over impulse. You chose dignity over drama. And life will always eventually bring them the understanding that your restraint was not an invitation to disrespect, but a reflection of your character. Karma's silence gives people the opportunity to learn what their actions have cost them, without you needing to say a word. And when that realization comes, it arrives not with noise, but with clarity, like a mirror held up to their conscience. Moving on becomes a quiet revolution. It is the moment you stop seeking revenge and instead choose to rise. It is the moment you stop replaying memories and begin writing new ones. It is the moment you accept that the person who hurt you cannot be the one who heals you. Healing is your responsibility, and liberation is your reward. But liberation requires honesty. The kind of honesty that is uncomfortable. The kind that forces you to confront your own attachments. What part of you was drawn to their approval? What part of you needed their validation? What part of you lingered in situations long after your intuition warned you to leave? These questions are not meant to blame you. They are meant to free you. When you understand why you stayed, you understand how to leave with clarity. When you understand what you tolerated, you understand what you will never tolerate again. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every disappointment is a teacher disguised as loss. And every lesson learned is a form of karmic growth that benefits you more than the other person's downfall ever could. You cannot control how others behave, but you can control how deeply their behavior roots itself inside you. You can choose whether their actions become scars or wisdom. You can choose whether your story becomes one of bitterness or transformation. Every painful chapter gives you two paths: to remain the victim or to rise as the observer. Choosing the latter means stepping outside the emotional fog and seeing the situation with calm awareness. When you see it clearly, you realize that their actions were a reflection of their inner state, not your worth. People treat others according to the level of peace or chaos within themselves. And the moment you internalize this, you stop taking their behavior personally. Forgiveness in this context is misunderstood. Forgiveness does not mean welcoming them back. It does not mean excusing what they did. It does not mean rewriting the past. Forgiveness means releasing yourself from the emotional debt they owe you. It means no longer carrying the weight of resentment on your shoulders. It means allowing yourself to breathe again without dragging the past into every new moment. People often say they cannot move on because they were never given closure. But closure is not something the other person gives you. Closure is something you decide for yourself. When you acknowledge that the chapter is over, when you accept that the story has served its purpose, you create your own closure. Waiting for someone else to validate your suffering only extends the suffering. Karma's silence also protects you. It prevents you from stepping into battles that are beneath your peace. It shields you from the internal erosion that comes from resentment. It guards your focus from being wasted on people who do not deserve a second of your attention. When you remain silent and detached, you protect your integrity. And integrity is a magnet for better people, better experiences, better opportunities. You do not rise by seeking revenge. You rise by leveling up your character. The universe responds to the energy you carry, not the wounds you accumulate. The moment you choose inner calm over outer conflict, life begins rearranging itself in your favor. There are moments when life removes people from your path, not as a punishment to you, but as a mercy. Sometimes the silence after someone leaves is not emptiness. It is space finally being cleared for something healthier. You were not meant to carry everyone with you. Some people were only meant to be chapters, not companions for the entire story. Their role in your life was temporary, and their exit was necessary. Even pain has a purpose. When someone's absence brings you more peace than their presence ever did, you begin to understand that letting them go was a form of self-respect. The mind resists letting go because it clings to what is familiar, even when familiar is harmful. To move on, you must teach yourself to break the habit of emotional dependence. You must learn to redirect your thoughts whenever they drift toward the past. You must discipline your attention as firmly as a warrior disciplines their training. Walking away is not simply a physical act. It is a mental commitment to no longer revisit what wounded you. True detachment means choosing not to open emotional doors you've already closed. It means no longer romanticizing what hurt you. It means no longer giving power to memories that do not deserve a home in your heart. When you move on, a transformation begins. Slowly, quietly, profoundly. You begin to see your own value again. You begin to focus on your growth instead of your grievances. You begin to build a life that is too expansive to fit the ghosts of your past. And in this expansion, you will find new strength. You become the person who no longer chases answers, no longer begs for closure, no longer seeks validation from those incapable of giving it. You become the person who stands rooted in purpose, clarity, and self-respect. Moving on is not abandonment of the past. It is evolution beyond it. And here is the truth few accept: when you finally move on, quietly, without bitterness, without theatrics, without the need for revenge, that is when karma's silence breaks. Not in front of you, not for your entertainment, but in the life of the one who underestimated you. Suddenly, they realize your absence was not a victory for them, but a loss. They feel the emptiness they once projected onto you. They feel the loneliness that their choices carved. They feel the hollowness of a life built on short-term impulses rather than long-term character. And when the consequences finally return to them, they understand that your silence was not weakness. It was wisdom. They understand that your distance was not emotional immaturity. It was the beginning of your liberation. But by the time this realization arrives, you are already far ahead, living a life they no longer have access to. Moving on is not about teaching them a lesson. It is about learning your own. The lesson that peace is worth more than revenge. The lesson that your future is worth more than your pain. The lesson that self-respect is worth more than temporary emotions. The lesson that your life does not pause for the apology you never received. The lesson that your growth is not dependent on the remorse of others. Karma's silence and your silence are different things. Karma's silence is the universe taking its time. Your silence is you taking your power back. And so you rise, not loudly, not angrily, but steadily. You rise by redirecting your energy into your own development. You rise by becoming someone your past self would be proud of. You rise by refusing to let your heart be imprisoned by disappointment. You rise by choosing to be better, not bitter. And gradually, the past loses its grip. The memories lose their sting. The pain becomes a teacher, not a prison. You become someone new because you chose to move on with grace instead of resentment. Karma's silence continues, but now you are no longer waiting for it to speak. You are no longer sitting in the audience of someone else's consequences. You are no longer drowning in questions about fairness. You are living. You are growing. You are walking your own path free from the shadows that once held you hostage. And this is the real victory. Not that karma eventually visits them, but that you no longer need it to. There comes a moment in every person's life when they must decide whether they will continue looking backward or finally turn toward the direction their soul is calling them. Remaining attached to what harmed you is a subtle form of self-sabotage. You hold on because you fear the emptiness that may follow. Yet emptiness is not a curse, it is a clearing. Emptiness is the quiet soil in which a new beginning is planted. But you cannot discover this until you stop filling that space with old pain and old stories. Let the silence after loss teach you rather than terrify you. Let it become the place where you learn to breathe again without the weight of someone else's choices tied around your chest. When someone hurts you and walks away, you assume the wound is the end of the story. But a wound can also be an awakening. Pain sharpens perception. Betrayal exposes illusions. Disappointment breaks the attachments you were too loyal to release on your own. Every ending that feels cruel at first often turns out to be the doorway you should have walked through long before. Life is not punishing you when it removes someone. It is revealing that your journey requires a different energy than the one they brought. You cannot grow in a space built on disrespect, lies, or inconsistency. The roots of your spirit need truth, stability, and depth. Anything less suffocates you slowly. Your heart knows this. It always has. But the mind loves comfort more than truth. The mind clings to what is known even when it is harmful. That is why moving on feels like war. It is a battle between your intuition and your attachment. Your intuition whispers that you deserve peace. Your attachment tells you to hold on to familiarity. Yet peace will never grow in the soil of what broke you, and familiarity is often the very thing stopping you from rising. There is a quiet strength that comes from finally choosing yourself, not in a selfish way but in a wise way. The kind of strength that says, I honor what I felt, I honor what I gave, but I will not dishonor myself by staying where I am not valued. This is how you reclaim your dignity, not through anger, not through revenge, not through proving anything to anyone, but through the simple act of walking forward with grace. Choosing yourself is not abandonment of love. It is the recognition that love without respect is a slow form of self-destruction. People often confuse letting go with giving up. But letting go is not the act of surrendering what mattered. It is the act of refusing to suffer for what is no longer aligned with who you are becoming. Growth requires release. You cannot climb if you insist on carrying the weight of every year behind you. You cannot evolve if you keep feeding the wounds that want to heal. And you cannot find your future while clutching the ruins of a past that cannot return. There is a powerful clarity that arrives when you finally stop giving your energy to the wrong things. Suddenly the world appears sharper. Your thoughts become lighter. You begin to understand that life was never meant to be a constant struggle for someone's affection or approval. Anything that must be fought for beyond reason is already costing too much. Anything that drains your spirit is already misaligned with your purpose. And any relationship that collapses because you demanded respect is a relationship that was built on sand. The most beautiful transformation comes when you realize you were never angry at the person. You were angry at yourself for staying longer than you should have. But instead of turning this anger into guilt, turn it into knowledge. Learn the lesson. Carry the wisdom. Leave the weight behind. Regret is a prison, but awareness is liberation. When you understand your own patterns, you free yourself from repeating them. Karma does not operate on your schedule. It does not send you updates or notifications. It does not present itself with dramatic moments of justice. Karma works on the inner level long before anything external becomes visible. The person who harmed you may look unbothered on the outside, but what you cannot see is the erosion happening within. Every lie weakens their character. Every betrayal fractures their inner peace. Every act of disrespect distances them from meaningful connection. They pay not through suffering you can witness, but through the emptiness they carry, the distrust they plant, and the future relationships they damage with their own unresolved flaws. And you, the one who was wronged, must not let their actions define your future. You must not allow pain to distort your heart. Do not let bitterness shape your identity. Do not let disappointment close your spirit. Your heart is not weak because it felt deeply. It is strong because it survived. The fact that you cared is not your flaw. It is your proof of humanity. Never allow someone else's lack of character to make you doubt your own. There will come a day when you look back and realize that the silence you feared became the sanctuary you needed. You will realize that withholding your reaction protected your peace. You will see that life was guiding you, not breaking you. You will see that the loss you cried over was the freedom you silently prayed for. And you will understand that moving on was never about abandoning the past. It was about rescuing the future. Your life moves in the direction of your focus. If you keep your eyes on what hurt you, you stay hurt. If you keep your thoughts on what left you, you stay empty. But the moment you redirect your attention to growth, healing, and self-respect, everything around you begins to reorganize. Opportunities appear. Peace returns. New people arrive. People capable of empathy, honesty, and consistency. You cannot attract the right connections while clinging to the wrong ones. Life does not reward attachment, it rewards alignment. The most powerful act of moving on is not deleting someone from your life. It is deleting the version of yourself who tolerated them. You grow not by removing people, but by removing the weaknesses within you that kept allowing access to those who didn't deserve it. When you evolve, your standards rise. Your boundaries strengthen. Your circle becomes smaller but truer. You stop entertaining conversations that drain you. You stop negotiating your self-worth. You stop explaining your value to people committed to misunderstanding it. You outgrow anything that once kept you small. Growth is silent, just like karma. It does not need to announce itself. It does not need applause. It unfolds slowly, in the way you speak to yourself, in the way you protect your peace, in the way you no longer chase what is chaotic. Growth becomes the evidence that you have understood the lesson. And by the time karma reveals its own outcomes, you are no longer concerned with how the story ends for them, because you are too busy writing a better one for yourself.